Before we start, I'd like to pass the time to Pastor Tiffany. Pastor Tiffany is, if you're not from Glad Tidings, Pastor Tiffany is our family life pastor. This is a community event, but it is organized by Glad Tidings, our church. All right. So Pastor Tiffany, over to you.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Good morning, everyone, and welcome, welcome, welcome. It is a beautiful morning, and we want to welcome you, like Elaine said, to our community talk that is organized by our Family Life Ministry of Glad Tidings, where through Parent Hangout, we organize talks and events related to parenting, marriage, and anything family. So we're very glad that you can join us this morning. And we are so very privileged to have our guest speaker here with us. And like Elaine mentioned, you know, he's a very busy man. I believe he needs no further introduction, but I think an introduction is still very much needed because he is a very accomplished physician, you know, served in the civil service for more than 35 years and was formerly the head of the pediatric department at Ipoh Hospital and the head of clinical research center at Perak, Malaysia. You know, everyone, he has a really big heart and a long-standing interest in children, in the community, you know, children in disability, family, self-help groups, you know, NGOs, child abuse, adolescents, and disadvantaged and marginalized children, and especially the orang asli. You know, he is an active, you know, and a faithful child advocate, and is the recipient of the Outstanding Asian Paediatrician Award 2012. And the Senior Advocacy Award in 2016. Now, during the pandemic, Amar dedicated himself very much into research, you know, and then furthermore, he went the extra mile in even educating the public about the coronavirus. But despite his busy schedule, he wrote a book. And that's what brings us to this event today. You know, the Cybersafety guidebook that Dr. Amar has written provides information about the types of online sexual abuse and how to recognize online red flags, you know, and also steps that can be taken when children or teenagers are being exploited online. And I think these are some of the very pressing issues that us as parents or even teachers or, you know, anyone that has young people or even children, you know, in our homes. So this handbook provides guidelines on handling disclosure as well as some activities that can be carried throughout, you know, for the children, the teenagers, and to facilitate further discussions with them. And so we're very, very glad that each and every one of you are here this morning. I know some of us here are logging in from overseas, you know, as far as Toronto, you know, and all over Klang Valley. So we just really want to welcome you, and we want to pass this time over to our speaker for the day. One time only, Dr. Amar-Singh.
Thank you very much. I thought Elaine is going to take over from there, but she's going to moderate, right, Elaine? Yes. So thank you very much, Tiffany, for that kind introduction. Thank you, Elaine, for moderating this. And thank you for the team that's in the background, EK, SJ, and Yinling, who are supporting us. SJ is the most important, I think, because he's looking after tech support for us. Okay. Yep. So I'm going to talk about cyber safety and how we can manage screens in children. And allow me to share my screen as we do that. Okay. Yep. So it's going to be talking about keeping children and teenagers safe, about managing our screens, screen addiction, and things like that. Okay. Now I'm going to fragment the talk into two parts. The first part, we'll talk about the more serious ones, online abuse, give you examples and types of online abuse that children face, some data from Malaysia as well, and then talk about how we can support the children, what to do, okay? Along the way, I'll do some storytelling of children that I've seen. I work extensively with children in this area as well, and many families have brought children for us to see how we can help, and I'll give you some examples. And I'll also talk a bit about prevention and training children. The second half, I'll talk more in general about screen usage, how to nurture our children to be able to find balance with the use of screen, and how to deal a little bit with children who are stuck on screens, and some guidance for us, especially with young parents. And lastly, a small word about setting love in order, finding balance as we move forward. Okay. Now, as the team said that there's some resources for you, and I hope they will post this in the chat right now. I wrote this book for a Women's Center for Change in Penang, a good organization. And that's what the cover of the book looks like. Took a couple of months to write it. I had lovely support from quite a number of the Women's Center for Change staff, as well as we had a local lawyer, Faizaita, who did some very lovely illustrations for the book. Now, the book is available for free to download, but I hope that you also will support Women's Center for Change if you can, with giving them a gift, some of you anyway, because they do very, very good crisis work for women and children to rescue them. Okay. I also put together a 2-page notes for you, which is on screen time and families. You can either use the QR code or the bit.ly link to download this. And this talks more, the second half of the talk about, setting guidance for our children and ourselves. Okay. So I'm going to move on and leave the team to post these. Okay. Again, a slight introduction, a bit about myself. I often show this slide. This is me, drawn from a child's perspective. Very, very, very well done. My big nose is well captured. My hairy arms so creatively done. Children are always very. I have lots of pictures of me drawn by children over the years who I've cared for. My lovely eyelashes, and of course, I used to wear narrow ties, but towards the last 5-7 years of my life, I stopped wearing ties because they're unhealthy. I want to speak from children's perspective. I listen a lot to children, and they are my educators, my trainers. And I want to talk a lot from their perspective and their struggles. We often look from a parental perspective, and we don't look enough from our children's perspective. I have a sizable amount of experience from children and families who struggle with screens, and I want to share some with you. And of course, I have my own bad cyber experiences. I hope you have as well. Anybody who's online has bad experiences. I'm largely on Twitter. I only use Facebook to read pages, but on Twitter, I get abused. And during COVID, there's a lot of abuse, actually. The moment you say something that people are not happy with, they will abuse you. And you need to know how to deal with this. It can be very painful. You need to know how to mute some people and just move on with life. Not terribly that easy. And I've had a very, very severe cyber experience that I will share with you as we go along. Now, I'm a BT child, before television. Some of you may be AT children after television. I like this cartoon, the days before television. That's what I think people did. No, we didn't do that. You also can call me a BC child. That means before computers, and some of you are after child. I remember the first day a television turned up in my neighborhood. I was in Tolok Intan at that time. My father's working there, and I think I was 7 or 8, and a black and white television turned up at my neighbor's house, and it had Lucille Ball, that old show. I think 1 hour television, that was all. 1 hour streaming from RTM. And suddenly all the children left the playing fields and turned up in this house. Very quickly, my father bought a television to bring us back home. That tells you how addictive these things were. But this was my childhood. And I'm sure some of you had this kind of a childhood. Before televisions turned up, we were largely outdoors, flying kites, running around with our friends, playing gasing, all sorts of things like that. But life has changed. And as Lutz showed this many decades ago, life has changed. And you can see how dedicated the mother is feeding him while he's busy with his dinosaurs. And today, of course, it's handphones that this is happening with. Very few children are fed without handphones that I'm aware of. Okay, and we're coming to this. This is already here. At least this one, there's possibly some eye contact with mom. But this one, there's no more eye contact, not even with the pet that you're holding. And this present reality frightens me a little bit. We need to know how to manage this. We can't run away from it. We need to know how to manage it. So let's talk about the first part about, as I said, there's a link for it. First part about online risk and abuse in children. Okay, I want to say, first of all, that are children any less at risk, adults any less at risk than children? I'm not sure. I think we're just at risk. We also don't know how to navigate the online very well. Uncle, auntie, grandpa, grandma also have had to come online, and some of them don't handle it very well. The Macau scam, for example, the number of people who've been damaged by this is enormous. And these are not uneducated individuals. I was hit by this scam, but I didn't succumb to it. If you have never hit by this scam, can I tell you that they are extremely professional? They call you on a handphone, and then they progressively develop this scam, and a policeman talks to you, a supposedly policeman talks to you. My credit card is cloned, other things happen. I remember my mouth going dry, my heart beating very fast. I had an acute anxiety attack. I had to turn up in a court immediately right now. And it went on half an hour. I remember talking to different people as they progressively passed me on to different people. I verified their numbers, and they were police station numbers. They're very, very good. They're actors, and they know how to manipulate your phone. Okay. Finally, of course, I recognized that this was a scam, and I said, I'm going to call my lawyer. Then they threatened me that, I would be in trouble, I would probably get arrested. And of course, after talking to my lawyer, I went and lodged a police report and so on. And then I became smarter about this and talked to other people about it. So very easy to succumb to something online, very easy to get damaged online, very easy to actually be hurt online. So I'm not sure that we're better than children. And this talk may be as much for adults as it is for children. Now, what are the kind of abuse that happens online? The commonest one is probably cyberbullying and doxing, but cyberbullying especially. There's cyberstalking and harassment. I'll say a word about that. The one that happens a lot to children, but also happens to actually adults as well, is grooming, where someone sweet talks you. I think I like this old English word, sweet talks you is the right word. They sweet talk you into thinking that they are nice people, but actually they are interested in you. Some of this sweet talking may be for money for adults, but a lot of it is for sexual purposes, and that's why it's called grooming. Okay, there's also sexting, sextortion, and virtual rape, and I'll say some words about them. Then there's the problem of pornography online. I want to say that these things are not peculiar to boys or to girls, any one of them. They're peculiar both to boys and girls. It's not particular to one. So pornography may be more something that boys are involved in, but girls as well. Then the screen addiction, which many of us are involved in, and stuck to our screens, and this online gaming addiction, which I may not talk so much about, but we can take some questions about it. So we know that children, this is from our Cybersecurity Ministry of Communication, talking that children use the internet for a variety of purposes, including you as well. Look up information, social networking, learning, and of course to look at videos and stuff like that. So it's an integral part of their life as it is in your life. Okay. What about data of abuse? Microsoft did a study in Malaysia. 1 in 3 victims, children are victims of cyber abuse. Telnor Group in 2016 said that 40% of students, teenage groups were cyberbullied. Notice that only 47% seek their parents' advice when they were in difficulty. This is bad news. Okay, 40% are addicted to online peer pressure, and this is a concern for many of us. 25% of DG survey, 25% of children said they will meet the person they met online. And this is a worrying statistics that you need to bear in mind. Very hard to judge who is the person online, and they're prepared to meet this person means, it's risky for them. Okay. This is a study done in 2018 in the Asian region. And this is looking at parents, and 1 in 4 parents say their child has experienced cyberbullying. Remember, it's parents speaking, so it's much higher in the children's rate. But we were higher than the global average, which is of concern to us. We have very high internet handphone usage. Okay. Here's another study from DG in 2017 showing that 51% say they have experienced cyberbullying on social media. 65% say they received nasty messages, and 49% say they received unwarranted sexual material online. Even I have received unwarranted sexual material online. A study from Malaysian schools show that children get bullied. The type of bullying they get is got mean names, nasty messages. Somebody dropped them out of the group, boycotted, blocked them from the group, spread lies, got hacked, embarrassing photos or videos of themselves, personal information shared or threatened. So this is the kind of things that are happening to our children. So it's not old news, it's new news, a lot of children happening. And when you look at who the cyberbully is from the data, about 50% of the time it's somebody you know, especially your classmate, not often a stranger. So when bullying concern is that. Some extra data, just to, I will summarize all this data in a moment, but some extra data, something that, a study that I did with Surya, that 47% of 2-year-olds, I'm only talking about 2-year-olds, use the screen and internet unaccompanied. That's a bit of a worry for us. Telnor Group, again, 92% set rules for their children's handphone. That's very, very good news, but we need to see what kind of rules. I'll show you some rules later. 30% of girls say that they get harassed in chat groups. From studies that I've done in schools in Perak, especially in Ipoh, the majority, I would say 100% of all children above 12 have seen porn. This is not new data. Okay, I think that the age has come down. Females tend to get more bullied than boys. And from physical data that we've done, this is physical sexual abuse from 3 of us looking at different studies over time, at least 10% of all children are sexually abused. This is physical sexual abuse. The rate on online sexual abuse is much higher. So if I summarize all the data for you, that all kinds of online abuse is happening to our children today, not tomorrow. 50% of all children and teens are experiencing some sort of abuse right now in Malaysia. Less than 50% tell their parents about it. Bullying is often by someone that they know. Sexual harassment of girls is common. The majority of our children look at porn online once they're actually in their teens, and 50% are online at least without their parental supervision. I suspect this figure is very low. We don't have good data. The figure is much higher. So basically, we don't know what our children are doing as adults. We need to recognize that. We must recognize that this reality. When children are online, we don't know what they're doing, and they're not going to about to tell many of us what they're doing online. Okay, so this is a summary of the data that we have available right now in the country. Bullying, let me start with bullying, but bullying is already very common in person. This is a study from Microsoft looking at Malaysia. 80% of all students admit to being bullied in person. I'm sure you have as well in school, experienced some degree of bullying, all right? But let's look at cyberbullying, okay? So cyberbullying is different from physical bullying. It's bullying use of technology. The aim, of course, is like bullying to hurt, to harass, threaten, or embarrass you. And as I said, 50% you know the person. It's usually repetitive. And the victim, of course, ends up not being happy. We depend a lot on each other's, someone saying, hey, hi, Iki, you look very pretty today. Iki, let's look pretty today, and, the lovely red t-shirt. So we depend a lot on affirmation and support from each other. So negative things go a very, very long way with this. This is all stupid saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, words will never hurt me. It's rubbish. The real one is, sticks and stones may break my bones, words will always hurt me. And that's the real saying. And I have a formula, 100 good sayings equal to 1 bad saying. So if someone says, your nose is very big, Amar, oh, it's a gigantic nose. It takes 100 good statements to actually overcome that negative, painful statement. So, good things don't stick very much. Bad things stick a lot and hurt us. And that happens both to teenagers and to adults. So what does cyberbullying look like for our children? So as earlier, the study from children, either through Facebook, internet, Twitter, Snapchat, or some other place, people send mean, hurtful, or threatening message to us. They may be anonymous, or we may know the person. Quite often they're anonymous. There's this word called trolling, and that actually is, you target somebody specifically and you keep on sending messages until the person evokes a response. But basically, cyberbullying is the word most of us use. Some people, of course, spread lies about you. Some of this is called flaming. That means they specially, create untruths about you, maybe graphic as well, and then they spread that through social media, not directly to you, but to your friends and your peers, and that bounce back to you. They also may send videos or photographs of you that embarrass them. They may be often edited images, may take your head and put on a naked body and circulate that as though it's your naked body. And that kind of videos can be done photos can be done very well these days, almost seamless. I do a lot of photo editing because I watch birds and image birds, and I know photo editing is very easy to do these days. They also may exclude you from a group, and that's another form of bullying. They stop you from communicating with others because there's a control game. They may create a fake profile, which looks like you, and then send out messages from you, making you look bad. And lastly, of course, if they can steal your password or log into your account, then you're in trouble. Then they can actually do whatever they like with your account and muck up. If you've got a website or Facebook, they may do things there. So here's an example of a 15-year-old boy that I saw. He was very active on social media, but then somebody got annoyed with him for some reason and started calling him homo and started posting messages, images to try and suggest that he's a homosexual. And then many others also caught on to this, and they started to gang up to tease him. This one behavior of both adults and children that I do not like. There's no reason for us to gang up against other people, but both adults and children both do this. I see this on social media, people retweet or add to negativity instead of adding to positivity. Yeah? Okay, and so shared graphics about him. Now he became very, very depressed and he wanted to commit suicide. He made one attempt. I want to ask yourself these questions. What should he do next? And I will give you guidance what to do. And why did he want to do this? Why did he want to commit suicide? Why was this pressure so great that he wanted to commit suicide? I want you to think about that. I'll come to that towards the end. Okay. I want to mention this thing that I learned from a colleague who's very much online. One of my doctor's colleague who's probably earlier online than on me. And this is not his coin, but this came from Barbara Streisand. It's called a Streisand effect. Worth reading it on Wikipedia if you like. Basically, if you try and stop something online, it becomes louder. Okay? You be very careful about this. So one of the best things you can do with a bully is ignore them. The more you fight, the louder the messages and the bully becomes, okay? So I practice a Streisand effect online. If somebody says something negative about me, I just ignore. And most of the time that helps. But if I respond, then there'll be a barrage, and then you end up in an argument, and other people will join, and the whole thing will become a huge explosion, and you will. So remember this. Remember that cyberbullying and false information has a life of its own and escalate. Don't escalate it by responding. Now, this is a word called doxing, and it's slightly different from the cyberbullying. It's a subset of it. It comes from the word doc as in documents. And basically, somebody unhappy with you, and they want to fix you. So they find all your information online, your handphone, your email, your address, whatever, and they share and reveal identity to others. And then many people cyber harass or cyber bully you. Becomes very, very serious. Doxing is a very serious thing, okay? Very serious form of cyberbullying. Same with cyber harassment, cyber stalking. These are when people actually go overboard. They don't just bully you, but they become very threatening. They may threaten to rape you. They watch all your movements. These are people who become obsessed with bullying you. Both doxing, cyber harassment, cyber stalking needs to be reported. The conventional cyberbullying we may be able to ignore, but these are very severe ones and may need to be reported. Okay. What about the bully, cyber bully? Why did they do this? I think they do this for a variety of reasons, usually revenge or anger, but also could be pleasure. Some people do take pleasure from hurting other individuals. Some are just bored and frustrated with life and taking out. Some may have been abused at home and taking out their anger. So I often view that cyberbullies need help. I've often said that the vast majority of physical in-person bullying are abused children and need help. And I suspect a lot of teenage cyberbullying also need our support. Maybe there is a need to work with them. Hard to find them, but need to work with them. I'm moving on to the next one, and I'll talk about what to do as a group, okay? This is grooming. This is somebody who wants to, abuse you for their own sexual purposes. And what comes through your screen may look quite pretty, but what's behind that is something very, very different, okay? And how does a groom person, a sexual abuser who wants to groom you works? They develop friendship with you. They join chat groups. They usually masquerade as, they take a fake profile and names, and they masquerade as maybe another girl or a young, handsome young chap, harmless, okay? And, they develop a friendship with you online. They join a chat group, they join a Twitter group, they join a WhatsApp group, whatever mechanism they can to join. So they're always looking out for these groups where children are. Then they establish a trust relationship with you. How they do that? They're very charming, they're very understanding, they're very listening, they're very caring. Exactly what you want from your family, from your parents. They're what your family is not to you. If your family is busy, if your family is not there for you, they are there for you. They listen, they say all the right things. They are very accomplished, okay, these individuals. Let me tell you that they're very, very good at doing this. Then they gradually say, move the relationship to a private one, because they've won your trust. Then they move to a private relationship and slowly get more and more details from you, figure out where you live, get your other online details from you, and then gradually introduce some sexual activities. They know there's no rush about this. If there's a rush about this, you'll probably terminate that guy and block them. But this is because there's no rush. You've established a relationship, move to a private one, and then gradually to do this, and they might actually do it first. Of course, it's not their own body they're showing to you. They're showing something else, okay? And then once they got a hold on you, means you have shared an image with them, or you've shared a live naked video with them or something like that, then they got a hold on you. Then you may discover who the real person behind, and their demands increase. They may demand to meet you in person and sexually abuse you physically, or they may actually share your explicit images with others without you knowing, which means it could be a pedophile group or something else that's going on too. So this is how the whole process. There's slightly more detail on the notes that are written in case you need to read. Now, part of this grooming involves these things. Sexting. Sexting comes from the word sex and texting, where you actually sexually explicitly share images of yourself. When someone asks you for an image, this is someone asks you and you share. There also may be that they share images of you with other people without your consent. Okay, so both may happen, but usually you share with them first. It could be a video as well. Then there's sextortion, which is sex and extortion, where once they've got some image like this, then they demand more from you. This is a common modus operandi of these individuals. And finally, there's virtual rape, where they got a strong hold on you, and then they ask you to do a live stream where they actually will record videos of you asking you to do things to your body for their pleasure. Okay, all right. Here's an example of a 14-year-old girl I worked with. Both parents are professionals. She befriended a man online for about 2 months, and then he asked for some naked pictures of her. She trusted him a lot, and she sent them to him. And then, of course, the whole thing escalated and demanded more for her. And I want to ask you how to help her. We'll talk about that in a moment, but why? This is more important. Why did she do this? Huh? As a parent, you ask her, why would you send that? She's quite a bright girl, you know. Why did she send these images to this gentleman? We need to ask ourselves this question. The next area is pornography. And this, of course, is the display of sexual content. It may not be pictures. We often think of it as pictures, but it could be words, it could be videos, and it's used for sexual arousement and pleasure. And children are exposed to porn quite often unintentionally, out of curiosity, or when sexual desires at puberty starts, they search for it, or you know, could be shared by friends. Huh? I'm not sure when each of you in this room saw porn. My experience pre-computers was at sanitary. You know, a classmate offered to show Playboy to me, images. And of course, that is exciting as a young child. Nobody has ever talked to you about it. Huh? I don't like porn because quite often it normalizes violence against women, but also against men. 10 to 20% of all online searches are for porn. And the internet, if you look very hard at the history of the internet actually has been accelerated because of porn sites. That means it's helped the internet to grow, okay? Although we say predominantly it's boys, but increasingly more and more girls are searching for porn. There's also an element of child pornography, which is very, very serious. There's a commercial element as well. Now, this is an addiction. Once you're stuck on porn, it's like, as John White says, it's an itch you can't scratch. It's an itch you can scratch as much as you like, but it cannot go away. It goes on. And it leads to some acting out. So here's a 10-year-old boy that I work with. He spotted his grandpa watching movies on his laptop of naked images. He just peeped inside and saw that. He's very curious. Grandpa not around. He brought a USB. He copied videos and image files. Then he watched them on his own handphone. Started to masturbate more often. Then he started to act out. He asked his classmate to perform sexual acts with him. And then he got caught. And mom brought him to me. And of course, the school was horrified with him. Huh? Okay. Think about how we can help such a child. By the time he came to me, his brain was full of sexual images, very, very sexualized young boy. Huh? Remember, he's only 10. Okay. I've also met children who have been initiated into a peer group with porn. That means they want to join another group. They like that peer group. So the peer group said the only way to join is if you post 2 sexual images, naked images or videos to us. There's also more severe peer groups where you only can join if you share your girlfriend's naked images or videos. That's a very, very much higher end, more severe one. And these are operating in Malaysia and difficult groups because often a Telegram or somewhere else with restricted access and what is this? You can't really penetrate the groups so easily. Okay, so let's come to. I haven't covered other areas, but we can. But let's talk about what parents can do. And these are my key things that you should think about, and I'll talk in detail about some of them. You need to prepare. You need to educate. You need to prevent. I'm always a prevention. As a pediatrician, I'm always thinking about preventing disease in children rather than, treating the end product. Huh? So you need to open a dialogue with your child, and you must be prepared to listen. And you need to not just say, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. That's the usual parent style, isn't it? That one is not valuable. I think it makes a child selectively deaf. You need to actually have a dialogue with them. An open, ongoing communication, not one-off, is very important. Okay, and the thing is, a trust relationship is key, all right? So you help them set guidelines and best practices, how not to harm other people, okay? You be alert as a parent for signs of online abuse. I'll talk about some of them in a moment, okay? Because kids may be reluctant to talk about this, and you need to be alert for signs in your child, and you need to be their support system. If they come to you and tell you they have a concern, you listen. Don't respond badly. Don't say, why you do that? I told you not to do that. How come you go and do that, huh? Then I think they shut down and they won't talk to you anymore. So you listen to them. A lot of children, when they tell me, I'm like, I don't even phase out, you know. They tell me things which horrify me. Inside, I'm screaming. But outside, I say, okay, tell me a bit more about this, you know. How did it happen? And how do you respond, you know? So we need to tell them that we are there for them. So if you react in anger or you're upset, then you know, you're not going to be there for them. And finally, you need to work with them to figure out how to move forward, how to handle this disaster or crisis that they're in. Remember, trust and communication, open communication. So ongoing from young age, a trust relationship from young age. Yeah? The fact that many children don't tell us some of the worst things that happen in their life means they don't have an open communication. They don't trust us enough not to respond badly. So in the book, we put some red flags for you. You know what to do. I mean, look at this chap. He's not handling his handphone. That is a crisis, isn't it? Any teenager who's not glued to his handphone and can be separated from a handphone is somebody in trouble, basically. Huh? So some of the red flags to think about for children and teenagers is when they appear very nervous or emotional online. They look like they're upset when messages arrive or they're using the internet. But they become very secretive. When you enter, they delete their screen or they clear their screen or something like that. Huh? They're very protective. They put they've protected their digital life from you extensively. You can't penetrate. They drop you off from their Facebook, you know, and stuff like that. Then you got to start thinking about it. Social withdrawal. That means they start to withdraw from many activities. They become more of a loner. There's a change in behavior, unexplained, not the same child that you knew. The variety of possible changes in behavior, not just a loner, but they may become more tearful, maybe more depressed, or maybe more extroverted actually at times as well. And the drop in academic performance might also be a marker. Mood swings, changes in appetite and sleep may be an issue. And of course, if they stop using, that's a strong sign. Stop using the computer and handphone. Remember, most people who are damaged online, unlikely to want to tell a parent or teacher. Why? Because they feel ashamed. There's a lot of stigma and fear. And of course, they think you take away their privileges of the handphone. So we need actually to work with them rather than to respond that way. So when they disclose to you, respond with kindness and support, not alarm. I'm here for you. How can I help you? Yes, that's a horrible thing happened to you. Tell me a bit more about that. See how we can do something about this, okay? So you're not a parent who responds, even though inside you may want to, you go and shout and scream with your spouse later in private, but not in front of a child, huh? Okay? Secondly, for people who are not parents, you need to have some confidentiality with the child. Okay, I often have confidentiality with caveats, which means I will tell the child, okay, whatever you tell me, I'm not going to tell your parents, but if whatever you tell me is harming you or you're going to harm somebody else, I have to tell. Those are my two caveats. This thing is harming you or you are harming somebody else, then I've got to tell. Okay, so I don't lie to them. Because otherwise, a bocho rasia, isn't it? You tell me anything, I won't tell the parents, and I got to tell the parents. Because you have to tell the parents about this sort of things. If they're being sexually abused online, if they're being severely cyberbullied online, you know, they're being threatened with rape online, you need to tell their parents. Parents need to know, okay? And finally, have honesty when there's disclosure. Don't tell them, oh, everything's okay, I will fix this. No, you can't. And most things you can't fix, okay, by the way. Most of the online things we can't fix. So we just be honest, I'll be there for you. I'm going to help you as much as I can. Let's see what we can do, but don't make promises you cannot keep. I don't do that either. We help them as much as we can. So what to do? Here are my basic steps. If you go to the booklet, we've gone for each one of these step by step with descriptions, what to do in more detail, but I'll talk about the basic principles. The basic principles is, first of all, stop. Okay, we tell the child, stop the communication with this person who's sexual offender or bully. Don't give in to any more demands. Secondly, tell the person you trust. It could be a parent, or maybe if you don't trust your parent enough, you tell a teacher or a doctor, someone that you trust. Okay, tell them. Then you document. Usually we will help. The moment you tell somebody, the next thing we will tell you is document. First thing I tell them is take screenshots and record all the communications because we need this as evidence. We want to do something about this, okay? Because the person on the other side also may delete it, or you may end up, it's so horrible you want to delete it, okay? Then only you block. So remember this sequence, we don't block the person immediately. We stop communicating, we tell someone, we document, and then we block that person's account, handphone, whatever things. Sometimes we may need to get a new handphone number and email because some people are computer sharper and smarter than us. And so we may need to change our address and location, okay, and be smarter about this. Then we report. How much and how report, I'll give you an idea in a moment, but you need to get a parent or a trusted adult to come with you and report as a teenager or child. I would recommend that all passwords get changed online. I use a Kaspersky floating keyboard when I change my passwords. That means the keys on my computer cannot be recognized, because when you're typing your keyboard, somebody may put a software into your handphone, your PC, and they may recognize those keys. Okay, so maybe consider passwords and make them much stronger. Okay, and then some people may need therapy to work through the pain and struggle, and I'll talk a bit about that in a moment. Now, should we report to the online service provider? I have done so before. I have reported abuse on Facebook, Twitter, and so on. I'm not Instagram, but you can. Generally saying this, very poor response. I was reading a BBC reporter who did a whole assessment of this. Her own life was turned upside down. She reported something and then started getting a lot of nasty sexual hate mail and threats and so on. So she reported to Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and nothing much happened. 6 months later, those people who are the aggressive, negative people who are threatening her are still operating online. So don't expect these people to do very much for you. But I think still worth. I think we should pressure Facebook especially, but also Twitter and Instagram and the other social networks to take action. And it should become mandatory, not just when can. The problem is just, it's not one person, it's not 1,000, it's not 100,000. It's millions of people who are facing this problem every day. And that's why these groups also have difficulty. So maybe in the future, artificial intelligence may help, but people will circumvent artificial intelligence, I'm sure. Okay, when to make a police report? I think all online sexual abuse must be reported. Remember, it's online, huh? There's been no physical sexual abuse, but you report. By law, we're required to report, but you must report this both to welfare department and to the police, okay? And any threats to you, the threats to harm you, threats to rape you, I think these are dangerous people and you should report them. You might want to report to the Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission and the Cyber 999, severe abuse like doxing, cyber harassment, cyber stalking. These also, I will launch a police report as well. And threats to harm you. I think should, like the Macau scam that tried to get my money, I launched a police report. Okay, I strengthened my passwords immediately that day. I contacted a lawyer for advice what to do. Okay, there is also the Malaysian School Anti-Bullying Support Hotline. All this available in the booklet, by the way. And you could, but I don't know how much to harp from all of this. Okay, I must be honest. Even when women report rape to the police, not always do they get the reception that they need. So, I think worth doing, but don't expect much. Maybe work with NGOs like WCC and others. There's a list of NGOs at the back of the booklet that you could work with, and maybe consider working with them. They might be able to give you more support than some of these groups might be able to. Okay. Now, I want you to recognize that the impact of online abuse is just as harmful as offline abuse. You might say, oh, thank God she's not physically abused, but he's not physically abused sexually, but it's just as harmful because, the internet exponentially multiplies the abuse. It can amplify the anguish of the child. Sometimes I call it the never-ending abuse. It's very hard to stop it online. Huh? So some children, there's persistent symptoms. They don't do well even after you rescued them from it. Then I think you need to consider therapy for them, sensible people to work with them. Okay, and any therapy, any healing must not just deal with the impact of the trauma, but the impact of the ongoing distribution, because the child knows, the teenagers knows this is happening. And for disclosure, you need to do. You may be able to stop the images there. You may try, but you can't stop the images. Once they're there, they're gone. They spread widely. But you need to deal with the anguish from this in the therapy as well. Okay. Now, I must tell you that only 50% of parents talk about online abuse, as this is from UNICEF study. I did one study as well, and you can see that the average communication time with a teenager, the parent says 20 minutes. The teenager is more generous. They say, parents talk to me 36 minutes a day. Okay, all right. Teenagers always try to protect their parents, with external people, they say, my parents is good. I've noticed my work with teenagers, they always say their parents are good. The parents will grumble more about their children than the children grumble about their parents, in my experience. Huh? Okay. And of course, everybody felt they needed to improve their communication. Okay. Now, training, I want you to consider that there are 25 pages on training, and I hope you will consider going through them. We made it such that you have also got worksheets, which you can photocopy this and give to your child. You can do it in a Sunday school. You can do it in a classroom. We actually specially designed this for teachers. for group learning. It's actually very good for group learning. And so you can actually use the scenarios, get them to answer, and we have given you some of the answers as well, but you can be creative to develop more answers. We've also got these red flags as part of the learning for teenagers. The other red flags for parents, these are red flags for children and teenagers, because the key thing online is how to spot a good relationship, how to make a good relationship, and to spot when the relationship is becoming unsafe, when what you're doing online is becoming unsafe. So we tell people always trust your intuition, your inner voice, and you're uncomfortable, you talk to somebody. Okay, never be afraid to talk to somebody. And some of the online things are people praise you too much. Now, I tend to praise people, but I won't go overboard or constantly, all the time saying something about you. People who try to move the communication to a private one-to-one, that's another red flag. People who ask you to keep the relationship secret, very strong red flag, I would say. People who ask too much information about your private life, your personal life, your private information. People want to send you gifts. Think hard about this. I mean, if I did a talk for Tiffany and the gang, and they send me a gift, that's understandable. But they're just going to send you a gift with no reason. You think twice about this. They ask you for an intimate photograph. Oh, the biggest red flag of all. Don't do this at all. And they want to meet face to face. That's another red flag. We need to teach our children also about how we post and share thoughts online. Never share personal information online. Don't share your passwords other than with your parents. I only share passwords with my wife. Never respond to a threatening message. You report that to an adult and let them handle you. And always tell somebody when you have something that's scary, okay? And don't agree to meet with somebody. So these are two principles we teach children. Don't keep secrets like this. Tell somebody, and you have a right to say no. Okay. Now, we cannot isolate our children from the world. I must say this. If you're a parent and saying, okay, I listen to Amar's talk, I'm never letting my child go online until he's an adult, you are asking for disaster. I remember one of my classmates in medical school, in university. He was isolated from the world by his parents, heavily protected. When he came to university, he went berserk. He had no idea how to deal with ladies, social relationships, and so on. He went really overboard, alcohol, women, stuff like that. The rest of us who had slowly been introduced to peers, gone out on a date with a group, gone on a date with a girl alone. I mean, we developed our boundaries and our balance. We knew how to respect each other and how to communicate. And so we need the same thing with phones. I'm coming back to these to say how I would deal with them. So here's a 10-year-old boy who saw a lot of pornography. We talked to grandpa, of course, and grandpa got tongue lashing. We can't stop grandpa from looking at porn, but grandpa needs to be careful how he does that. Okay. And, I worked with this boy almost weekly for a while. We looked at how he can fill his heart and his mind with other images. For a while, we restricted his handphone, only for a while, we restricted his handphone access to him. We talked to him about how to respect people, both men and women and their bodies. And it took actually about a couple of months, I think 3 or 4 months of working with him to slowly desexualize him. And we talked openly about sex and about masturbation and about relationship within people and as I said, respecting each other's bodies. So very frank dialogue, which of course every child should have with their parents about sex if we could, starting from young upward. This boy who wanted to commit suicide, this girl who shared a naked picture. By the way, why did she share a naked picture? Probably because she wanted to deepen the relationship, probably because she was very lonely. She trusted this individual. So for this boy who committed suicide and this girl who shared naked pictures with a man online, I think this is one of the reasons we need to understand what's happening with our youth and also with adults. Most people are lonely. They're empty inside. I often say loneliness is the commonest disease in the world. It's the commonest, biggest disease in the world, maybe the most damaging disease. And so we're all looking for affection and acceptance. We want friendship and relationship. Okay. And of course, adults as well, no different. And so if you cannot find this immediately in your family, you cannot find this immediately in your in-person physical friends, then you will look for it online as well, isn't it? That's where you will go for it. And that's why you get sucked into this. So there's a lack of security, a need for people to, who want affection, acceptance. We are craving for a relationship. And there's an emptiness inside us. And so we're looking for a relationship. I think we need to understand the motive, the logic behind this. Children may not be able to articulate this, but this is how it is. So why do we commit suicide? Because we can't face the world anymore. We've lost the thing that we trusted, a good relationship, which now has turned bad on us, where we feel betrayed and we want to commit suicide. And we don't have a backup plan. We don't have people in our life that we can turn to adequately who can rescue us, okay? All right, here again, we may not have somebody who is there for us. Okay. A softer one, just as a last example, 16-year-old boy, active on social media, on the internet 24/7. His sleep is affected, but his school is good, okay? He gets upset the slightest negative opinion on his accounts. He works very hard to recruit followers. He's depressed and he's lost. So not really school affected, but completely consumed online, addicted, requiring followers. So much addicted to online affirmation that it damages his life. I hope you're not here. If people don't give you a thumbs up, but gives you a thumbs down, is your day gone black? If it is, then you are in trouble, and maybe you need to wean yourself off social media for a while. Okay, so that's talking about the first one, which is the more severe and difficult one. And we'll take questions at the end. I'm moving on to electronic screen usage, and stuff like that. Again, I said there's a link for some notes for this. And I'm looking at studies, from the 2002 until 2016, you can see this increase in screen time. I benchmark here because I did a study looking at screen time here, and you can see the screen time in children has just gone up and up and up, and it's just gone further up. I think the average time now is maybe 8 to 12 hours for some children. In my practice, I always take a history of screen time in any child, and usually 6 to 8 hours is commonplace for most children. In this study that we did, as I told you, for 2-year-olds, their screen time reported from parents was 6 hours. A lot of it is unsupervised, and many of them were watching television and using a handphone or tablet at the same time. Phenomenal, these 2 years can multitask, can use 2 devices at one time. Here's another study I did during school holiday period, looking at play of children, and surprisingly, 66% of play was indoors. School holidays, no COVID, playing indoors. Why? Because it's 6 hours unstructured play, 66 indoors, 50% of screen-based play, and 86% of parents says, I prefer my children playing indoors because it's safer. And that's worrying, isn't it? Non-COVID time, also want to play indoors, and of course, end up playing with screens if you're playing indoors, okay? So I want to talk a bit about the negative and positive benefits of screens and how to support our children for screens in overall. And it's not just the screen. It's very important to think of the content of the screen, the content of the media that we use and how it's used, as important as the duration. You may use screens only for 2 hours, but that content is very, very nasty or difficult. Okay, you may be watching porn for 2 hours. That's horrible. Compared to you might be using screens for 6 hours, but you may be watching YouTube videos of Barney Goes to the Zoo, Sesame Street, and that may be a lot more healthy content, even though your duration may be long. So think also about the content, not just the duration, and the kind of social media you use. Of course, many of us like that, work, home, play, and sleep, also dreaming of our screens. So there are positive benefits of screen. I'm not against screens, okay? I think screens can teach you to be creative, can develop skills, coordination, confidence. Hospitalized children, it's great. You're stuck in bed. A screen is good for you to explore. And people have used applications to build your immunity against malignancy, against cancers in children. And of course, it gives you a huge resource. I often think it's wonderful for children to get this huge library for them. Who buys an encyclopedia for children anymore? It's Google. And of course, it offers bonding opportunities, which I'm sure you and I have. Right now, we are bonding by internet. Okay, this talk has been enabled by internet. So, offers a lot of digital tools and opportunities for us. And I met a lot of people online, which I value. Of course, I met a lot of nasty people as well. Here's a study that we did looking at about 1,000 children in Standard 4 and Form 4, looking at how they use the internet. A couple of us doing this. Ayun was the lead here. And, although there might be some online gaming, a lot of them use it for good purposes, for music, for chatting, for emails, for schoolwork and so on. So we must recognize that digital devices have a benefit both for primary and for secondary school children for their learning and their connection. But there are negative impacts. There are a lot of reviews, systematic reviews, compiling all the data showing the negative right? And one of the horrible things is habit forming. The earlier you start the screen, the more habit forming. Similarly, the earlier you establish boundaries and guidelines, the better your child does, actually. So I think a lot of want to say to you, start very young if you're a young parent. Huh? And if you start early, you tend to use screens more later, obviously natural. Huh? For development purposes, as a pediatrician, I'm very concerned about this. You get language delay, the attention difficulty, it means become more hyperactive. You don't do so well with your executive function, your ability to use information and think, and you don't perform so well in school if you use screens a lot. So your development, if you use screens from very young, especially under 2, including under 5, you're going to be affected in terms of how you grow. So that's not a good time to use screens. Sleep, good studies from Norway showing, obviously you and I can see, the more screens you use, the less you sleep. We all know that, isn't it? And this will affect your school time. You cannot concentrate so well daytime because you've been awake at night. And parents may think he's asleep, but he's turned on his screen and he's using it in his bedroom, he or she. Very, very good data from thousands of children in Iceland studies showing that the more hours on screen for teenagers and children, the lower the well-being, the more difficulty making friends, the more depressed score, the higher your depressed score, less self-control. So basically from all the studies, the large numbers of them, there's a dose relationship. The more rice you eat, the fatter you will be. Okay, that's a factor, all right? The more nasi lemak you consume every day, the larger your tummy will be. So similarly here, there's a dose relationship between screens and loss of interest in life, loss of appetite with food, loneliness, sleep difficulties, cry easier, depression. The future seems hopeless. And 4 hours for teenagers is about the dose that seems to start causing a lot more damage for you. Let's skip that one. I'm worried about this one. There's not enough data on this. What do screens do to parent-child interaction? I'm sure it impairs it, correct? They're more likely to screen than the parent. But similarly, what do parental use of screens do with parent-child interaction? If the parent is looking at the screen all the time, you're not looking at your child, is it? And of course, addiction is a worldwide phenomenon, not just in children, but in adults. Anybody who's not addicted here, please let me know. I will take your screen away. You please courier your handphone and tablets, everything, shut down your internet, and I'll keep it for 1 week, and then we'll see what state you are like in 1 week from now if you say you're not addicted and you don't need your screens. Okay, let me know. I'm happy to be the custodian for your devices for a while. Some cafes do that, you know. You got to put your handphone into a bag which doesn't allow any connection, and you have to talk. It's called old school communication. It's real world communication, of course. So here's a 14-year-old boy I saw. Parents brought him to me, addicted to screens, very active playing online games. Studies became affected. So mother took away his devices. What he did, he stole his sister's device. It's constantly on the screen. So how to help him? So the response from the parent is take away everything. That is a bad response. He's 14 years old. He's not a 2-year-old child. Okay, that you can do something like that with. And now he's going and doing things which are more nasty. So I sat down with him and mom, talked about it. You see, the online is like a buffet. I'm sure many of you have been to a hotel. I went to this phenomenal buffet in Penang. You know, Penang buffets are better than Ipoh buffets. I mean, the food there was phenomenal. Right? The achars and all were gorgeous. Huh? And I mean, you want to eat everything, isn't it? There's so many things to eat. As opposed to maybe a meal in your house where you got an egg, maybe one vegetable and some rice. So it's extremely attractive. Online is extremely attractive. The teacher cannot compete with online. I worry if you're a teacher. How to compete with online? Online is so attractive. So we need to recognize that. We need to work with his addiction. Okay. So I talked about mother's change first. Can you imagine that in front of him? I say your mother will change. Of course, I talked to her privately first, that she's going to prepare to change. She will cut down her screen time. She will offer more listening time to her children and so on. She will actually cut her own TV time as well. And then we talk to him and say, can you tell us how much screen time you need? We didn't tell him don't. I said, your mother will put your handphone on the kitchen table. Won't take it away anymore from you. Okay, you will come and use whenever you want, but I want a schedule from you. So I sat down with him and his mother, and we drew up a weekly schedule. Some days there was more. Non-school days, there was more. School days, there was less. And the times will fit in. I asked, would you consider doing your homework for speech screen? He says, okay, that's a reasonable request. So we bargain with him. I bargain with him, use the mother as my advocate to say yes, okay, and all that. And we worked that. And I said that, okay, there are going to be days when you fail. I want you to record those and let me know. And so he kept a diary of his failures for me as well. Okay. So I didn't get his mother to police him anymore. I got him to police himself. We cannot police teenagers. It does not work. So basically, I'm teaching him self-discipline and balance, how to find this balance in life. At the same time, I talk to parents about going out, doing more interesting things. And I'll talk about some of the interesting things in a moment. That means we did more non-device-based family activities, which are important as well. Okay. How many of you look at your device first thing in the morning when you wake up? When you're eating with your family, if there's a message, do you look at it? Or at traffic lights? If you do this, then you're in bad shape. Okay, number 3, you may not do. But number 1, number 2, the majority, number 1, all of you are doing. This is a bad habit. Time to stop this habit. First thing in the morning, spend time, kiss your spouse, kiss your children, listen to God, do something else, then pick up your phone later. The way to do it is to make sure you turn off all your notifications and all your broadband, so nothing can come through. Then it's an inert device. Don't let the device control you, control your device. And when you're eating, that's a screen-free time. Nobody looks at it. Unless an emergency phone call comes through, even then you assess. Somebody calls me and I'm eating, I say, is this urgent? Not urgent. Okay, I'll call you back later. Finish. And a phone call. Okay, so it's got to be urgent to be taken. Otherwise, this is how archaeologists 5 years from now will find us. This is what we will look like, our skeletons. I'm sure right now, even some of the Chinese burial, they put a handphone with them to bury them with, isn't it? There's paper handphones. But some of us are going to be buried with our real handphone, I suspect. So the key point in working with children, in moving forward, is to fix families and parents first. If we don't fix our own addiction to electronics, not just electronics, to social media, which is the bigger addiction. I think social media is the bigger, the WhatsApp, Telegram, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and all these kind of things are all the things that are our addiction. So we're going to practice screen-free days, screen-free moments every day. It's not going to be a big holiday when you do this all the time. If you don't change, don't ask your children to change, full stop. That's my policy always. Parents change first, okay? I'll handle this at Q&A time. What age should we give a children a handphone? Why don't you think about this? And maybe Elaine, you remember to ask this question and maybe have some dialogue on it. Okay. Notice that Bill Gates only gave his children handphones at 14, and Steve Jobs never let his children use iPads, young children, until they were teenagers. So these two guys were selling us all this stuff. They protected their children from the damage of it. And we need to listen to the fact that they knew the damage of this stuff. Here's a 5-year-old child, introduced to screen since young to keep her quiet because she was always very loud. And, always asking for things. Mommy this, mommy that, mommy, why? Mommy, why? Mommy, why? Is something that many parents get tired of. I'm very excited with it. It's a lovely question. Chance to explain to children. A lot of people get fatigued. So she watched a lot of video, especially on YouTube. Now she has got a nasty temper tantrum if you take away the handphone. If you take it away, she will scream and shout, and the whole neighborhood knows about it. And she uses it as soon as she's back from the kindy. She uses it at meal time, she uses it at jamban time before sleep. She's on the phone whenever she's back from kindy. How to help her? You may ask me. Some of you may be in this kind of situation. She's 5 years old. So for this one, we won't deal with it like a teenager. I've lots of children I've seen like this. I do behavior management. And Tiffany, this needs a whole workshop. I run workshops on behavior management for younger children and how to help them deal with it, how to help temper tantrums like these. The one clue I must tell you is we will take the device away and the temper tantrum will get a lot worse before it gets better. And the neighborhood needs to know that you are doing this, that you're not abusing your child. And we will have to put in a lot of measures to support this child and ourselves to deal with this temper tantrums. So it can be done. It will take a lot of pain, maybe a couple of weeks of hard work before we bring back this child to a better place. And then we can reintroduce the phone at a slightly more controlled pace. Okay. I've got this note in the notes that I've given a second link to you. And I want to suggest to you, if you're a young parent, or even if you're a parent who's got a young child right now that you've already gone wonky, to bring it back. You need to establish a home plan use for all media. And this is the plan that we are suggesting for all children in the world, not just for Malaysia. Under 2, there are no screens, full stop. They never see a TV. I mean, they may see the TV, but it's not on. They never see your handphone on, tablet, e-games, which means you don't watch television when they're around. You don't use your handphone when they're around. At the most, there may be a phone call with grandpa and grandma. That's it. It's used as a video chat. That's it. Full stop. Nothing. There's no electronics under 2. Not like this, 2 fellas, huh? Okay? There's no electronics under 2. I don't know whether you can do this or not. Huh? I said this to one reporter when he was asking me to talk about screen time. I think it was one of the star reporters. Amar, I cannot do this. I myself cannot do this. Huh? I cannot ask my children to do this, but we can do this. And I must tell you that this is for their development. You are investing in your child's long-term development, as I showed you data earlier. Otherwise, you're damaging their brain growth and their development and their speech also. 1 in 3 Malaysian children, in my experience now, has speech delay because of screens especially. I call it environmental deprivation. They are deprived from the physical human environment. Then when you're age 2 to 5, 1 hour a day. And this 1 hour is not their choosing. You are choosing programs for them. It could be Discovery Channel. It could be, Sesame Street, whatever. You are there with them. You are spending this 1 hour watching it with them. And you're making it language rich and interactive. So it looks like this. You're sitting there with them. It could even be a artwork that you're doing on their tablet or a handphone. You're using it as a toy. You're using it as a stencil for art. You're using it as a tool to learn language. You're using it as to learn something about a particular thing, maybe how to make a fruit salad, and after that we go and make the fruit salad together or something like that. But you are there with them. You're investing your time. You are interacting. You're stopping and saying, hey, what do you think about that one here? It's language rich, very important. You are controlling the content. Okay, remember, this is 2 to 5. After that, notice I become more liberal. 6 to 11, we place some limits and some limits on content as well. We tell them this, Now, some people will say, I'll come to that in a moment. So we place limits and content. And so we tell them, okay, school days you can use so much, weekends you can use so much, and I would like you to not go to certain sites, and I want you to control your content. You can come and ask me whenever you're unsure about it. Okay. By 12 and above, I'm very, very liberal, by the way. If you've done all this along the way, your child has learned a lot of skill sets. We have taught them how to use media positively. We don't abuse others. We've discussed online safety aspects extensively over the years so they know what is dangerous and what is safe. It's not a one-off training you've done to your child. You've done numerous trainings slowly, bit by bit. You've educated them. You use examples to do it. You might even see something on media and you ask them, hey, read this with me and see what happened here. You have a very open channel of communication. And now you encourage them to manage their own screen time. You say, let's make a schedule together and you manage this. I'll help you whenever you're struggling with this. And that grows. Here's a study that we did of about 200 plus parents looking at the rules they set. This is Macy, as a pediatrician, was the lead in this study. And majority set rules, but look what the rules they set. This very poor rule. Only 22% were there with their child for the device. No good. I want more parents here. They check all their private messages. Oh God, 63% will check all their private messages coming in. 64% install an app on their children's phone to monitor what's happening. And 67% check all their downloads for this. These are very dangerous rules, these 3. This one is a good rule, but the other 3 are dangerous rules. Okay. Should I monitor my child's online usage? Should I read my child's text messages? These are very debated online, but the general thinking for most of us is if you keep checking your child's handphone, when they find out you've lost their trust, you betrayed them. If you you carefully put an app online, Net Nanny or something on their phone without them knowing, and that is monitoring them, they find out you are bunkost, you're gone. What they shouldn't do is they delete everything that comes. You're never going to see a message. They will try and get a second phone. They might steal, beg, borrow a second phone that you do not know about. And that's where all the stuff goes on. You failed your relationship with your child. There's no more trust here. These are not trust issues. These are distrust issues that you're doing here with your children. Okay. Notice that I did say, when you're younger, you are setting limits. You are checking content with them. Okay. This is an agreement. They know you're doing this. Above 12, I'm not checking their content anymore. I've given them enough skill sets. Of course, although I've said age 12, we need to weigh the maturity of our children. Some children may be less mature, but generally I find children are more mature than we give them credit for. I do a lot of talks in schools. They can give me all the answers. When I ask them about sexual issues, they can give me all the answers. They can tell me what's safe and not safe. And I don't come and tell them, don't do this, don't do that. I ask them what is right and what's wrong to do, and they tell me what's right and wrong to do. Now, don't do this anymore, please. Family out to lunch. This is the average family out to lunch. Huh? Some other tips for you. No background TV. Very dangerous. Don't leave the TV on all the time. It's harmful. Babysitters do this a lot. Remove the screens from anybody's bedroom, including your own bedroom. Not a good place to have them. Avoid media before bedtime. It doesn't encourage your sleep. You know, avoid snacks and meals while watching screens and put on weight. Designate media-free family times together. Meals and driving are 2 minimum family-free times. Okay. Make sure the media doesn't take the place of adequate sleep and physical activity. And I don't personally use screen time or media as a punishment. I don't want to do that. I try not to do that. I try and use other vehicles for punishment. Okay, all right. Now, setting life in order, I'm finishing with this, and then we'll take some questions. Okay, all right. Here's some, I was giving a talk in an expat school, all foreigners. And some parents came up to me and said, my children are very attracted to screens. And this particular Japanese mom said, you know, she had 2 young children who, schooling is okay, but they hardly do any reading outside of school. And they have very limited outside activities. They are stuck on their screens, you know, and she's concerned for their future. So how can we help them, people like this? What did I do? I said, hey, why don't you come over to my house? I told mom. And she didn't bring these 2, she brought 2 more. Her other Japanese friend also said, I got 2 more problems. I had 4 Japanese kids coming over, all could speak English. And I offered them other attractions. I'm a bird watcher, so I talked, hey, let's look at some birds in my garden. And any one time, there are about 30, 40 species in our garden because our garden is very green and wild. It's an urban Ipoh garden, but it's green and wild. Huh? Even while I'm talking to you, I can hear some birds in the background cooing away. And I have published a small book on Malaysian wildflowers. So I said, okay, let's look at some of these flowers in the garden. These are all wild. Our garden is wild, by the way. And these are all wildflowers. And I said, why don't we look at some insects in the garden? This is a guy I'm particularly fond of. He's a baby plant hopper. It's quite small. Use a macro lens, but you can see him with a bit of optics, which I help the children use optics to have a look at him. He's very, very, I wrote a whole article about this insect, by the way. And this baby produces bubbles from the rear end. He secretes all his bubbles. And the bubbles are meant to be a jacket to protect him from the cold, this baby. And also it's toxic. If you touch this, the bubbles will just lash out at you and it's poisonous. Phenomenal baby. And we talked about things like this. I showed them some books on insects and birds and plants. I loaned them to them. They went home and they didn't stop reading until midnight. Mom did mine. Next day, straight out of school, they were outdoors, examining their own garden and the neighborhood gardens. Of course, I talked to them about sunrise and sunset. I watch every sunrise that I can see, and sunrise is beautiful. This is from the view from our house. That's called Gunung Korobu, one of my favorite mountains. And I've talked to them about other things that they could see. These are one of my wife's favorite animals. This is from Japan, by the way. I talked to them about the Izo foxes, which are phenomenally friendly in Japan. This is a male and a female who were courtship, and they let me watch their courtship. So it's not about stopping the device as offering more interesting things. Devices are interesting. We now offer you a lot more interesting things. Things that grab your attention. To do this, as parents, we must be involved in these things as well. We cannot just shove them to Nature Society and say, NGO, you take over, or somewhere else. I think we are parents got to find this. I am extremely attracted to nature, extremely. And I'm extremely attracted to God. So if you come to me, I will offer those 2 things to you, that God ends my loneliness. And nature is a profound teacher about God and the world and about life. And I use nature. I find solitude is wonderful. I enjoy the early mornings, sunrise, and just being alone with my wife and saying nothing very much. The silence is a powerful attraction to me. And children, when they learn silence, know how valuable it is as a means of communication. Silence is the best communication tool I know, by the way. To with another person. Sitting in silence with someone helps you get to know them very well. But I'm saying that many things. Nature, particularly, is very attractive. It could be something else. It could be doing some construction, maybe learning, how to make something with your hands, or artwork for that matter. I like Chinese brush painting. That's one of the things. I'm not very good, but I like doing that. So one way to start off is have weekly screen days with your family. Now that all of us are in phase 3 and phase 4, we can do this back again. What does weekly screen time mean? No TV, tablet, handphone, music, e-games, exceptionally. Full stop. Turn off your Wi-Fi and data plan. Everybody. Okay? Don't take any pictures. Phenomenal. Huh? Don't take any pictures. We're so selfie focused. Huh? Don't take them. Just keep them in your heart. Okay? Silence all the notification except your phone. So emergency, grandma want to call you, she can call you. Okay? All right. Otherwise, you don't want to be in contact with anybody else because you want to be in contact with each other at that time and with nature and where you are. Spend time in nature, not just with food. If I say spend weekly screen time, no weekly screen free time, you'll probably just go and makan or wander around the mall. Don't do that. Okay? Maybe make some sandwiches, get a picnic basket. Have you done that? It's lovely to do that, you know, and just go out, sit down somewhere in some places, got some grass, throw a blanket on the ground and just sit down and gab. Listen to each other. Parents, keep quiet. You only hear children if you listen for a long time. Quantity time is what you need. Quality time is useless. For 30 minutes quality time with a child every day is useless. You need quantity time. And listen to each other. Go and do some exciting things. Maybe it might be rock climbing, maybe it might be jogging. And one of my colleagues, a pediatrician, every weekend they'll be out jogging in the hills with their children. Children enjoyed it immensely. It was a great time for casual conversation and very important things to come out from the children's mouth casually at that time. Huh? Sometimes when children come over, I might just do a jigsaw puzzle with them. Fun one, Snoopy or something really very beautiful. Lots of flowers and stuff in nature. We might just chat while we're doing jigsaw puzzle. And then they drop all the things that they need to drop in my lap, you know, and then we carry on from there. Slow down, take it easy, enjoy life, have fun, breathe, go outside. I like this graphic, it's just a very simple graphic. You know, society has become very ill with the need to compete. Parents, many of you are very ill with the need for a child to compete. Notice this guy, number 1, very happy. This number 3 is so happy. Huh? It's a very amazing picture, isn't it? Huh? This chap doesn't care. Anything also okay. You know, I'm this number 1 pun tak cukup. Huh? And many of us are like that. After success achieved, also not happy because we've been competing all our life. Life is not about competition. I like this quote from Merton, who's one of my sifus. It's a Trappist monk. People may spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success only to find when they reach the top, the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. Be very careful. You haven't leaned your children's ladder against the wrong wall. And then when they reach that wall, there's nothing there and they're empty. And that's why many people are empty and they're always looking for something to fill their lives. So I want to end with some gifts that you can give your children. Your children need the gift of your parents' presence and attention. Give them your presence and attention. Lepak with them, to rescue an old word. A lepak. Just hang out with them. Strengthen your relationship. This means keeping quiet. Don't ask, hey, talk. What you didn't talk? What do you want to say? I'm here. Let me talk. Don't go and do that. Just be quiet and give them the space. They're not going to talk immediately because you'll never give them a chance to talk. All you said is, have you finished your homework? Okay, go and have a shower. Then go and eat makan. That's all you said to them for a long time. So, you know, give them the space and then they will slowly talk when they learn to trust you. Okay. And then facilitate relationships. By the way, these are people without screens. That's why they look so good. Okay, children without screens. Okay. Orang Asli children, I love to photograph. Children in Sikkim, I went there. They have no screens at all. They're phenomenal kids. So facilitate relationship. Create groups of children who can meet and do nothing but play. Have fun. Maybe you join them as well. Play hide and seek and cops and robbers and I think whatever you like. Give them a childhood. They need a childhood. Less homework, less school, more childhood. And create a relationship. A couple of parents gang up together and make sure children meet once or twice a week and just become friends. They need that. And then remember this wonderful word of what education really means, in case some of you parents here think I'm destroying your children's education. No, education means to bring out the child the treasure within. To really educate a child means to bring out of them the treasure already within them, not to stuff them with stuff. Our education system is a photocopy factory. We just make people like other people. Huh? The real education system is not that. It's we let children grow at their pace. Huh? Universal design for learning. If you forget anything else, remember that phrase for education. Universal design for learning is what we want. And we want to serve children, to bring up from them the treasure within and let them blossom and become who they really are. Please live your life as an example for your children. Otherwise, there's nothing much we can say for them. My email is there for anybody who needs it. And let's take some Q&A right now. Back to you, Elaine.
Thank you, Amar. Thank you so much. Just a reminder before we go into Q&A, we have in the chat the links to download the book that Amar has mentioned, as well as his notes. Okay, so you can see that in the chat and you can access it right now. Thanks, Amar. That is so insightful, and also a lot of things that hits very close to the heart, especially looking at the phone first thing in the morning. Before we go to the questions that were posed while we were talking,
Elaine, can I just jump to one question right now? I'm looking at the chat box also.
Oh, great.
And there's a lovely one from Daniel Tang saying that CDC studies show 1 in 5 children in the US seriously contemplating suicide. Social media seems to exacerbate this. Do you think KL would have similar stats? What should we do if it happened to our kids? Daniel, I'm sorry I didn't show that data. I have the data. This data is about 3 years old. It's a National Health Mobility Study, NHMS. If you look for that, and you look at the teenage NHMS study, it involves about 26,000 families randomly selected all over Malaysia, and 1 in 10 child in lower secondary school wants to commit suicide. 10% of our children are suicidal, have even thought of doing it and want to do it. Okay, so not as high as the US 1 in 5, but I think we're heading there as well. Okay, back to you, Elaine. Sorry, I thought it was powerful. Elaine, you're there? Tiffany, I think she's frozen.
Do you want to address?
Can't hear you, Elaine.
Yeah, I think she's frozen.
I'll tell you what I'll do while we're waiting for her to come back. Yeah. Let me take some of the questions from the chat box and then we'll come back to other things. Huh? Okay. Sure. Yep. Audrey asks, I'm going from the latest backward. Huh? Audrey asks, free screen day, do we limit for a day or can be a few hours? Audrey, I suggest that it's something that you do maybe on a weekend because it's a bit easier. And what you do, Audrey, is that maybe you start from the day you wake up. Let's say it's Sunday or Saturday, you wake up in the morning and everybody knows it's a screen-free morning. And then, you know, all the devices are stashed or kept offline. And then you go out and you pre-plan that day together. And then maybe by lunch, you can turn on the devices and carry on with life. Okay, so it could be a few hours. Elaine, back to you. Are you there?
I apologize. I think she's
okay. I'm going to carry on unless Tiffany, you have suggestions, you can butt in. So I'm going upward. Pauline Lim says studying online has accelerated the exposure to electronic devices. As a parent, it's difficult to control the content they stream. Appreciate your advice. Yes, COVID has damaged us. And you know, during COVID, I was pushing screens to children, especially the poor, because they have no access to learning. And I feel very bad about doing that, but necessary for their learning. I suggest that what we do, and I have got some notes on this, which I haven't shared with you. It's some of my other notes, a whole bunch of notes online for COVID. I suggested that we create a specific space in the house. It could be my masking tape or some other thing. This is your school right now. It could be a room if you have extra space, but otherwise in the living room, there is a chair and a table. That's your study place. And we put a masking tape and say this study. When you're here, you can use a screen for studying. When you're out, then all the other rules revert back. We've gone back to the usual rules. So it's only when you're studying online. Otherwise, the other rules for screen use come on board and we try and develop some balance. It's the same for people who work from home. We need boundaries. We work and then we stop and then we go back to living our other life. Huh? So that's some very quick advice. But in the articles, in the notes I have online, there are a bit more details about that. Audrey says, how to control a child's screen time when parents are not at home? Had discussed and aligned with a child age 10 on the hours of screen time, but the child has failed to do so. He'll watch his favorite YouTube channel first thing in the morning. I try not to watch early morning, but fail. Need some advice. Already not easy. Huh? We're not at home. And we would like our child to monitor themselves. Huh? Very difficult. I'm trying to think of what to do. Tiffany, what would you do? Huh? I was going to ask Elaine this, but what would you do with this 10-year-old who is home alone and has unrestricted internet access? Should we set a timer on the internet access and it cuts off?
Oh yeah.
Huh?
Oh yes, definitely.
So because he's 10, he's not a full teen yet. I probably discussed with him. We'd like you to control your own usage, please. And we don't want to police this for you. But if you continue doing this, we do that. I do that with younger children with TVs as well. we tell parents to buy a lock for the cable at the plug point. So it cannot be turned on, okay? Only the parents have the key for that one. So we said, we don't want to do this, but if you cannot manage your own TV time, we'll have to do it for you and give you time, I think. So maybe we want to do that with the child. Very unpleasant to do that. Huh? But I think leaving a 10-year-old at home is not good. I think we look to find childcare for this child or a group that the child to, we don't invest enough in group childcare. We always look for commercial childcare, but maybe some parents will say, okay, maybe I'll become your childcare. We might end up paying this person, but this person might actually be a friend, and then we might have 3 or 4 kids who drop off, and then we do other things. Then you can actually do other things and exciting, creative things, maybe paper or art and stuff like that. Daniel asked, should we get our children to sign a mobile phone contract? Daniel, I've signed lots of contracts with children over time. In fact, as a pediatrician, I even put my chop there and sign. And you could see the eyes become very big, like it's become official document, The younger they are, the more likely I'm to do it. The older they are, the less likely I'm going to do it. I prefer a verbal contract with teenagers. Elaine, you're back. We've been doing the things up. Yes, yeah, I'm back to you.
Please continue. Should we just run through the ones that have been sent? The one after the mobile contract is, what do you think about encouraging esports, negatives and positives about it?
Yes, I just saw this article yesterday, this guy who won second prize internationally. And even the Malaysian the second prize, the Malaysian who won 13 to 16 place got 2.5 Malaysian ringgit. Oh, wow. I told my medical doctors group we're in the wrong profession financially. Yeah, I think there's a place, but online gaming is a severe addiction problem. I think there are going to be people who can come on this profession. I don't know how to filter which one is and which is not. If the person who's doing esports online can control it, can show you maturity in controlling, I would encourage it. If they show no control at all, I think think hard about it.
I think that's the case with all online accesses, and even for adults.
Yes.
The question before that asked about reporting child sexual abuse. I am going to assume it covers both physical and online. Is there, if you're only an adult friend, you're not a medical practitioner, you're not a parent, you're not a guardian, are you legally obliged to report this to the authorities?
Legal obligation is to medical professionals and carers of children, which means interpreted not very well, but probably teachers. There is some injunction to families as well to report. So not something like that to you. But I would say the minimum moral implication for you must be to tell parents at least. I think that much is this, I think. And this child who's been sexually abused needs help, full stop. Never leave a child sexually abused alone. They need help not just to stop the abuse, they need help also to deal with the trauma of the abuse. Otherwise, long-term consequences for them are not good.
Thank you, absolutely. I'm just going to jump back to some of the questions that have been posed at registration.
Okay,
and sure. We've kind of grouped them all together. We've talked a lot about, negative and positive impact of screen time, but I think what's pressing on most parents' mind is the how. How do we control their content? How do we control their screen time? So what are your thoughts?
Say that again one more time, please. I was distracted.
Parents are asking for the hows. Like, we know what the what's, right? We need to have screen-free time.
Yes.
We need to control screen access. We need to control content.
Yep.
So most of the questions that came in were like, but how do we do it? How do we control screen time for a 10-year-old, 13-year-old? How do we control the content that they're streaming, which you have also addressed just now, I heard.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of it is, as I said, open communication, relationships, talking to our children, listening with them, bargaining with them. I wouldn't impose something on a teen without their agreement. And sometimes I think teenage has become very much younger. Although I say 10, 12, but maybe even an 8, 9-year-old might have become a teenager already today, in terms of their exposure. So I would sit down with them and chat and say what is reasonable, what's unreasonable, try and draw a timetable with them and ask them to please try and keep the timetable themselves. So the parent will have to see whether this is a realistic or unrealistic timetable. If the timetable says, oh, unlimited screen time on the weekend, I would not agree. I think the parents should then pen in some family screen free time on the weekend, activities that you plan to go and do together, you know. And again, those activities can be chosen by the child. We don't always have to impose things on the children. And you'd be surprised how attractive some of these activities become to the children. They may want a bit more. Quite often children want to do things. Parents are the ones who haven't done it, and we fail them. You know, they want to go somewhere, but we actually haven't done. So eventually they slip into this screen-related things. Nothing beats real life. Screens, you're reading about other people's life. When you experience an ESO Red Fox for yourself, you saw the picture I posted. I watched them for days in Japan, in Hokkaido, and they were phenomenal. We fell in love with them. Some of them actually came up to me. Wild foxes are up to, you know, just about 2-3 meters away, and just passed me by and just looked at me, you know, because they're very, very they're unharmed there. So I think this kind of experiences when children experience the real life. I offered something to some relatives and friends. I met them. They said the children are stuck. So I said, why don't we go for a walk in the jungle? So they all turned up from Singapore and KL to Ipoh, of course, makan some good food. And I say, okay, so I planned, we organized, we took off for the morning into the jungle, parked the car safely somewhere. And then this gaggle of people, about, I think, 12 or 11, a couple of different families, and I led them into a safe place to walk by the river. 1 or 2 leeches along the way, which was also fun in its own way. A lot of lovely trees. I talked about this plant, that plant, this flower, that bird, this thing. And then I said, why don't we jump into the river? The parents were totally unprepared. Children were totally prepared. Okay, all right, roll up pants, jump with the river, got wet, played with sand, did this and that. Oh, took one picture, okay. 1 group picture on a log next to the waterfall, just for memory. Then we came back and had a lovely Ipoh lunch somewhere. I think that's very formative for them. The memories they remember from. So I think not just set rules, create activities which are wonderful. Just doing, you know, what is this, origami together may be useful. We've got to find what our child is interested in and invest in that with them. It's not buying more stuff for them. It's investing our life and time with them. Remember what I'm saying, It's not buying some more books or some more stuff for them and dumping on them. It's being there with them, which means we cut back on our lives, our busy lives here.
Okay, I'm not going to go into specifics of some of the questions because I think there is a kind of repeating trend of online schooling leading to not being able to control. And what you're saying as well is that the parents need to step in and need to do something. You need to spend the offline time with them, right? So if anybody feels that what has been shared so far has not addressed your specific problem, then I would encourage you to still type it out on the chat, because I know Dr. Amar is reading the chat even right now. I'm going.
Let me jump into one chat question. Rumba asks, is a cyber safety book available in bar simulation? Not yet, Rumba. There is a plan, but all this costs money for WCC. So they are planning to get it in Malay and Chinese, both is coming, okay? Alex Tan asked, any chance of having notes for myself earlier? Yes, Alex, it's possible. It's actually, I will see whether I can post a link in a moment. I have to open something. But the team also posted a talk on COVID that I did purely for the people who needed to ask COVID questions. And, you know, I'm looking at something while I'm talking to you. And inside there will be a link to all the files on COVID and about resilience for parents and stuff like that. Let me see if I can find the link right now. Give me a moment, Elaine. Yes, I've got the link. And let me get this link for you. I'm having difficulty copying the link because my mouse is huge. Okay, I've got the link. Let me come back to you.
There's also a link that has been posted on Dr. Amar's latest talk on COVID and how the church, workplace, and school can reopen safely. So I think some people have also asked some COVID-related questions. You can look at it.
So I've just posted that link and a lot of files. You can look for files inside there about, you know, how to build a resilience family. And inside that is a work from home and supporting children stuff. Okay, let's go back to the questions, Elaine.
Okay. Before we jump to the chat bar, actually, can I ask something from earlier on as well? So people are saying that now you're talking about online gaming and, you know, kids are getting increasingly sucked into this. So in that case, should parents allow their kids to game at all? Should they not open the Pandora box? My children are whispering on the side, yes, unlimited screen time.
I don't support online gaming. Sorry, apologize. I don't support online gambling. Right. Now, online gaming is a bit different. I do play computer games. I generally play offline. In my early days, when I first bought a computer, I got trapped with games for a while. But generally now, over the years, I've become a lot more balanced. I can use games as a background. I've actually used games actually as a background, not as my primary thing. I use it to actually as a distraction when I want to do something else, actually. Not everybody can do that. I think it's personalities. Some people can play games untouched. Other people play games and addicted. I think you need to talk to your parents. Parents need to understand you. You need to understand yourself and discuss it. So I'm not against playing computer games. I just think there needs to be some balance because some of us can get eaten up with it, as I was when I was young.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I have 3 kids, so I see different behaviors, different compulsions online.
And the problem, Elaine, then your kids will say, why he can do, I cannot do, you know what I mean? And that kind of comparison, but we have such different personalities here.
Yep, definitely. That is an age-old argument. Even before internet, that argument came about.
Yes, correct, yes.
Okay, somebody has posed here, Grace has posed, it says that due to the pandemic, outdoor activities has been limited, so screen time has replaced that. Is nature still the recommended replacement for screen time?
Grace, there are many replacements for screen time. The primary replacement is parents, is what I'm saying. What parents do with that time is variable. It could be cooking together and having fun in the kitchen. It could be actually creating something at home. It could be going out and using nature. It could be, you know, fixing a car together, doing some carpentry work together. I think it's entirely up to the parents' creativity and the child's interest. I must say the child's interest is just as important. I wouldn't, you know, push a child into activity and say, how do you like that? I'll give them a couple of choices and see what they would prefer. I just like nature because nature is phenomenally diverse. And, you know, you could actually find many niches inside there. It could be just somebody who enjoys walking and running out there. It could be somebody who enjoys seeing different kinds of creatures and learning about them, you know. So it's variable, yeah.
Someone has asked a question about using parental control. As I understand it, I think this is an app.
Yep.
So I think you've addressed this, but I don't know if you want to talk about it again.
Yeah,
using parental control to
yes, there are many parental control apps, and there are a lot of good reviews on them. You can just search for them, you find them. I would like to put an app on my phone and my child's phone, both at the same time, that can tell us each other where we are. So when I'm out in the jungle, for example, I usually give my wife a Google link, and sometimes I leave her to track it as well. Okay, so then she knows exactly where I am in the jungle. So that's a safety thing, and I think that's good for children and parents. So children know where their parents are, parents know where the children are, that sort of thing. But if you put an intrusive app on a child's phone without them knowing, so that you could monitor their online usage, then I think if you do that without the children knowing, I would be unhappy. If you did it and say, tell the children I'm doing this, and they say, okay, mommy, it's all right, then I think it's fine. But I can tell you, I cannot believe a single teenager would accept that. They will all say no, okay? So I wouldn't be happy with it. I think it's a loss of trust, okay? Having said that, there may be children who are completely lost. I've had parents who have had to send children overseas to residential facilities to wean them off everything. Malaysians are with money. And these residential facilities are set up in some countries in Europe and the US where you are 100 kilometers away from the nearest place that you can find anybody. So you got no car, no transport, no nothing. You are in a backwood, sort of like a forest area. There is no electricity except, you know, I think some generator. Water supply is also from the well, and then you live there as a detox mechanism. China has got a lot of detox facilities. I don't think they really work very well. Okay, so I think this detox one that this person sent the child to also can make the child very angry with the parents actually. So, but sometimes children are completely out of control, nothing works, and parents with resources sometimes do this. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying that some parents have gone to that extreme.
This is when it's gotten to a level of uncontrollable addiction.
Correct.
A question that was posed earlier, which I thought was quite good, is allowing children to chat with friends online.
Yep.
So I think, you know, all the chat is like kind of like a subgroup within, right?
Yes,
so
correct.
instead of playing games, they will now want to keep chatting with their friends. And I think it triggers the same questions of I can't control them. I don't know what they're accessing, when they're doing it, not doing school. Instead of online school, they're chatting. So what's your advice?
And they want friends. And we want friends.
Yeah, well, they are chatting with friends, correct?
Of course,
but it also opens up the door
and
to
it's friendship
strangers.
that they're looking for. They're looking to giggle, to post an emoji, to post a picture. They want fun. School is boring. Anybody who tells me school is exciting, please let me know. Okay. I actually had two teachers that I found exciting. The rest were all okay lah. I just struggled through school. I learned faster without the teachers, but not everybody's like that. So I would allow a certain amount. You can't really control this. Very difficult to say. You know, it's easy to set a rule, but hard to keep that rule. I believe that a lot of it is the teacher creating such an exciting classroom environment that the children want to be there. And I think that's our hope. Even right now, okay, I'm doing this talk here. How many parents or people are completely focused here? Or how many of them are actually checking their handphone and responding to messages and stuff like that? Huh? Okay. I remember once giving a talk on developmental problems, autism and ADHD and other problems to teachers, special need teachers. And one that were playing with their handphones or reading newspaper while I was talking. And there I was sharing resources and files and doing all sorts of stuff, interacting with them. I did not bother the 1/3 though. I didn't touch them. I didn't talk to them. Their supervisor was furious, but I don't care. I focus on the ones so interesting. So difficult as a parent because it's your child. You can't say, I cannot focus on this. I will allow some amount of it. I'm not so strict, Elaine, to say cannot. Huh? But if 24/7 you're chatting with your friends, I think we need some help there. So I'm sure it's happening during school times. And, you know, even in physical schools, some schools allow phones to come in nowadays, you know. But most schools will not. So I suspect that by next year, we will have a lot of teenagers going back to school and then gradually the younger children as well. So some of these problems will be resolved.
Somebody asked a question about grandparents, same rules in grandparenting. So I think I'm just going to pivot that to say, how do you partner with grandparents? Because grandparents, you know, when you park the kids with them, then the easiest thing really is, and you can't expect grandparents to play catching with the kids, right? So how do we handle grandparents and these online boundaries?
Sure. So grandparents and the maid are the major things that bocho your discipline. Okay. And we know grandparents, they were very strict with us when they were parents. Now they manja their grandkids. And so many parents will say, but I need them. Without them, I don't have childcare. They're very care. You know, so I cannot tell them too much. I say you just have to be firm with grandparents and say, these are my rules. Please follow them. I'll be grateful to do them. And if grandparents are not able to do some of the things that you mentioned running around, then you got to plan activities while at grandparents' place. You got to plan those activities and give them to grandma and grandpa and say, would you do these things with my kids while they're there? And this is the amount of screen time I allow them and the content of the screen time I allow them. So I think we'll have to work with grandparents to do that. But I find that there's two groups. Some parents are prepared to do that and be firm with their own parents. Other parents who dare not because they're scared they lose their childcare with their grandparents. I'm worried about what's happening to the child because then it's one style of discipline here, another style of discipline there. It sets a very confused mind, the child. For discipline to work, there must be consistency across the board. I would empower the maid also to be just the same rules as the parents can impose. Maids must not be abused by children and taken advantage of by children.
Thank you, Amar. I think we've covered most of the ground. A lot of questions are repeated. Again, I'd like to open the chat bar to anybody who feels their question has not been addressed and they still want to pose it directly. Daniel has asked what kind of detox activities are best after playing online games with friends. Oh, sorry, I misread. I think he means like right after playing, what kind of activities they can do so that, you know, it kind of like reframes the mind, not in place of, because he still wants to game. He's saying that the child still wants to game, but he also understands that it does some things to him and he wants to kind of like clear out the brain after that. Yeah.
The most powerful one, Daniel, is sitting in silence. And I train a lot of parents to do this with their kids for multiple different problems, for anxiety, for depression, for you know, many different issues, just for to get together. So perhaps after he's gamed, maybe have a quick bite or a drink, maybe wash your face just to ease over, and then maybe sit down as a family in silence. eyes closed. And if you don't know what to do with your silence, breathe. Just breathe in slowly and breathe out slowly, you know. You're just concentrating on your breathing. And you do that for 5 to 10 minutes. Actually, it's just a while good. The recommended time is about 20 minutes. But start with 5 to 10 minutes if you can. It changes your life. You know, my wife does that quite a bit. I do that quite a bit. You know, I need an hour. My detox, of course, is a forest. It's another form of detox because suddenly I'm quiet and there's no phone and I'm not in contact with anybody and I'm just immersed in beauty and nature. So that's my detox. But different people will need different kind of detox. But the simplest and most powerful one is sitting in silence and letting things just drain from you in a sense. Okay, you're calming yourself in a sense. Okay. Apart from that, it could be doing something a lot slower. You know, one of the things that we perhaps need to do is slow down some of the activities that we work together in doing meals, maybe sitting together and reading a book together. Reading a book together doesn't mean the father or mother reading the book, but maybe dad reads one part, then child 1 reads part, then child 2 reads one part, all animated, of course. We want you to animate this book, you know, something that slows us down. Too much of our life now is fast paced. Anything that brings you down, catch your breath, can let you just relax a bit. Any of those activities will be powerful after a gaming experience. You cannot just sleep after gaming. You'll be very busy brain, you know. Okay, yeah.
It's like us adults, right? After online shopping, we cannot go straight to bed because all the deals like.
SJ is listening to that.
Yes, she is the Sifu. So I think we've come to the end of the questions and no one else has posed further questions. Pastor Tiffany, do you want to add on anything else? Or Amar, do you want to maybe elaborate on anything else?
Remember, these are not...
Okay, we have one, sorry,
yeah, sure,
one that just
popped
up. My children, age 9, will go onto YouTube and watch programs like NAS Daily or educational programs, not gaming or cartoon, but I feel he's still online a lot. What should I do? Yeah, that's my question too.
Yeah,
because my default is Nat Geo Wow.
Joe and Jared, I think that's a healthy use of the internet by your children. So content is good. Okay, I see some children learn phenomenal amounts from YouTube. You know, when I ask them where they learn, they say from YouTube. I also learn when I want to fix something, I learn from YouTube. But the issue is volume and any addiction. Okay, can he be weaned off? So I would set some guidelines about duration for this, and then you know, make sure there are other activities which are non-screen time based that the child can be involved in. Physical activities I talked about. I think that's all you need to check. You know, but your content is very healthy, which is good. Elaine, you're asking me to say whether I have something specific to say. I hope if everybody listens that what I'm talking about is not methods. What I'm talking about is relationship. We need each other. Okay, we need to be there for each other. We need our presence. Imagine if Elaine is talking to her husband and he's watching his handphone while she's talking to him and fiddling with him. She will probably become cold. And he probably will sleep in the living room for that day. And, you know, but I ask him to cook his own dinner. Okay, or something like that. Elaine, correct? Huh? We'll probably get very annoyed with doing that. So I think same thing with our children. They need our presence, our attention. I don't know how else to say it. My wife calls it attentive listening. We are attentive to the people that we're listening to. We're not listening with a plan what to do. We're not listening, thinking with a response. We're not listening to get past the talking. We are attentive. We actually want to listen to what actually you are saying. And that is actually the heart of all relationships, is attentive listening to each other. Listening without needing to respond is attentive listening. Okay. And then we might hear things that we didn't hear before. We might hear their fears, their joys, their hopes, their dreams, their concerns, you know. And then maybe we might ask a bit of questions about, tell me a bit more about this and so on. And then we might have a meaningful response to them. And we might also share our lives with them. I often find that sharing our failures and our weakness with our children is more powerful than sharing any success. Okay. Second thing I'm saying is reorientate your children's life. What are you looking for? Are you looking for him to become a successful doctor, lawyer, businessman, big money, earn swimming pool in the house? I think that's a very failed goal. Okay. Or you want to toughen him up so he or she can cope with this world. Another failed goal. I don't want to be so tough. I want to cry. I want to hurt. So my markers of success are 3. I have a good relationship with God. I really know who God is, not mentally. I have an intimate relationship with God. I have an intimate relationship with myself. I know who Amar is. I'm at peace inside. And finally, I have an intimate relationship with a few people, a couple of people. I have only an intimate relationship with 6 people, by the way. That's all. Just my soul friends. I have a lot of friends, but these are the people who I can bear my heart with them. So that's, to me, enormous markers of success. It doesn't matter what job, doesn't matter how much money you earn, but you are very successful because you have very good relationships with God, yourself, and with a few significant other individuals. So I'm saying that as well. That's what we want to nurture our children to. The screen time and all is just a distraction. Handphones and all is a distractions. We jump into that because we have failed in our primary goals of relationship. So perhaps as individuals, as adults, as parents, as people listening in, we need to come back to those primary relationships. And if you don't believe in God, at least do the other two. Know who you are deeply and know a few other people deeply and love them well, and be loved well as well. Thank you, Elaine. Back to you.
Thank you, Amar. That is so true. The upcoming event is also a community talk while we wait for the visual. It's known as the Resilient Father. So we've done a lot of talks, and we also notice very often the talks that we do are attended by mothers, and the topics that we address are somehow maybe more motherly or women type topics. But this time round, we are looking at something that is directly, specifically for the men. So please don't register yourselves. Please get your husbands, your brothers, even your fathers, your grandfathers, anybody who have male friends or male relatives who would need this. Okay, we're talking about how to support fathers during this pandemic. Lee Wee Min is actually the former director and founder of Focus on the Family Malaysia. I don't know Dr. Vincent, I'm sorry, but the details has been posted in the chat. You can click on it to register, and their profiles and their information will also be at the event link, so you can find out more about that. Might be a bit hard to convince men to do this, but this is really directly for them. And Mr. Lee Wee Min has done previous talks, and people who've attended it has had really, really good feedback on that. We would also like to share with you, if you have not come to this talk via Parent Tribe, Parent Tribe is our community platform on social media where we talk about all things parenting and family and marriage. So do join us. If you can see the QR code there, there is also a feedback form. So we would really appreciate if you can give us your feedback so we can do and plan better events. I know some of you have already asked, are we doing a similar event on cyber safety directed at teens? Okay, so I don't know. After this, we will talk to Amar and maybe we will send him some gifts in info so he will do an event. We haven't planned it yet, but thanks for highlighting that. That may be something that will be in the future, in the works, yeah? So hop on over to Parent Tribe if you want to keep posted on events. We promote a lot of Parent Hangout, a lot of the community events done at Parent Hangout, and also other events. You can also register for the Resilient Father event via Parent Tribe. So that's it for now. Thank you, Amar, and Pastor Tiffany, over to you.
All right. Even as the market opens up a little bit more, I guess there may be a lot more people moving around interstate. The Ipoh salted chicken is really very yummy, and so perhaps that would be one of these stops, but also available in PJ. No, this is not a sponsored advertisement. Yeah, just to say and make mention as lunchtime is drawing nigh. But we want to definitely appreciate Dr. Amar deeply for your time and for your knowledge that you have shared with us. And I think a lot of us here who are listening, perhaps some of you feel that, oh no, I have a teenager and I didn't really start on the right footing. But I believe there is still hope, right, Dr. Amar? There is still hope. We can still continue to foster relationships. We can start, wherever we are at. And there is still hope for us, to better parent and also help our children. Yeah.
Tiffany, it's never too late to change. That's for sure.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So just like Dr. Amar mentioned earlier, he also does behavioral management. And that's a very interesting aspect as well, in terms of how do we help our children, and also even ourselves. I think from this talk, I've learned to have a good self-reflection, to look in the mirror and ask myself, hey, have I been a good example, for my children? Yeah. So thank you once again. We appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. So next, we'll see you again sometime soon. In the meantime, take care and stay safe. God bless every one of you. Bye-bye.